Madam Mayor, it is 9:01 and we are live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the October 26th, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Pre-agenda meeting of the Commission of Lake Worth Beach. And can you call the roll?
Mayor Betty Rush,
Here.
Vice Mayor Christopher McBoy,
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga,
Present.
Commissioner Kimberly Stokes,
Here.
Commissioner Ronaldo Diaz.
Here.
Kimberly, you sound so enthusiastic about being here this morning.
Do
We can just hear the joy in your voice.
Are you being sarcastic?
I am.
Oh, but did I sound that bad? I'm a little tired.
We all are. Listen, we go till 10 o'clock at night, thank God, only 10 o'clock. And then go to, do this. So we're a spunky bunch. So Mr. Diaz has requested to go first because he's out in the wild. And I appreciate that you're even here, Ronaldo. So why don't you get started?
For today, I just have two simple things. The first one is I have been approached by a couple groups or one person in particular who suggested something, and that is, if everyone agrees, I would like to take a stab at writing a draft resolution in support of Medicare for All. And this is a movement that quite a few cities have been doing across Florida. I think the most recent one is Gainesville. Tampa has one as well, most likely Orlando. And basically the strategy, and this has happened in it's largely symbolic, but it's also not that symbolic, because in other states, if enough cities pass a resolution showing, support for this, that's how, this issue has gotten statewide support in other areas.
And so Medicare for All, that's a federal.
Yeah.
Medicare,
yeah.
the whole Medicare. Okay. Well,
It's
first I want to thank.
It's basically, and I do have a draft of it, so I can, work on that this week. But yeah, it's basically like a, raw, we would love to see this. It would help working families and people struggling to pay their expenses, so on and so on.
First of all, I want to thank you for bringing it up at the pre-agenda meeting and talking about it, giving us the opportunity to talk about it. I very much appreciate that. I think that's in the spirit of cooperation. And what's everybody's feedback?
Fine with me.
Kim?
I'm in support.
I'm in support, but I would really like if there was a way for us, I don't know the resolution, but with all the whereas clauses, I don't know if there's a way to get specific information to our community, how it will help. Like every organization and people I've talked to in the state of Florida, like NAMI, like mental health, recovery, all those groups say, if we would have expanded Medicaid, which our governor had blocked, both recent governors had blocked, the amount of additional dollars that would have reached our community and have propped up the mental health and recovery efforts would just be so, life-changing and it would be better for everyone in the community. And I'm always like, can we get the numbers on that? Like, I don't know if there's any way or any organization. And I don't want to like blow this out of the water, make it an impossible task, but I just think anything we can get that can show the true benefit to our community would just strengthen this resolution.
Ronaldo, can you do something like that?
Yeah, I love that. And, admittedly, it's something that I'm learning more about. But yeah, when it comes to resolutions, I never want us to just be like, here's a resolution and, clap our hands clean and move on. I would love to provide like some sort of companion, even if it was like, here's the numbers of local nonprofits or whatever groups that can help fill that void that our state isn't providing for, our people essentially. So yeah, I definitely love that suggestion. And I think there's a couple people I can think of to reach out to and see what kind of resources we can share and do that. Yeah.
And Kim, are you asking that to specifically be put into the resolution or as in like an addendum to it?
No, in the whereases, I think.
In the whereas, if
Chris, thank you. That's what I was asking her.
Some like if we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, we'll say, oh, whereas, we have the
Right.
Guatemalan Mayan syndrome, we have, like, we'll put things specific to Lake Worth.
Yeah.
So if
Okay.
there's any kind of data, and it doesn't have to be like dollars, it could just be population,
Right.
any kind of statistics that we can put in there that really shows the benefit to our community,
Okay.
I think would be
Ronaldo,
important.
are you up to the
Yeah.
task? All right, Ronaldo's up to the
Yeah.
task. Thank you.
I also,
Did you have? Go ahead.
with the reaching out to different groups, I think it would be great. And maybe we can collaborate, and Betty, maybe you can help too. With getting, when we like to present things and have people there to recognize them. So like you said, the different nonprofits, and this is a women's issue as well as a lot of issues, because there are a lot of women that will stay in relationships because they need the insurance, or people that stay in a job because they need the insurance. And like what we saw with the pandemic is when your insurance is tied to your healthcare or your marriage,
Right.
it really makes you less free.
Oh, yeah.
So I think if we can get organizations there that can that support this for all those different reasons, that would be like
That's a great idea. Listen, I live in divorce world, and it's devastating. All of a sudden you're not insured. Yeah, you can go in Cobra, but it's extremely expensive. So yeah, great idea. And I'm even thinking like the women lawyers group. Kind of stuff.
Good idea.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like we're gonna need a little time to get this together. When are we talking, Ronaldo?
Yeah, I mean, I guess depending on the response of the next, of those groups, but it's definitely not necessarily a time sensitive thing.
Right.
So a couple
Okay.
weeks, few weeks, yeah.
So let's just stay in touch and just see how we're
Yeah.
all doing. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great idea,
Thank you. I
Ronaldo. Thank you.
love those ideas too. Thank
Yep.
you. And then
Yep.
and then
What
the
else?
other thing I have is really just it's a process thing, and it relates to we're limiting the reading to 10 comments, which I've been open. I have mixed feelings about it. Anytime we limit commentary in any possible way, it's uncomfortable, but it is something I think that needs to be done. But in practice now, I'm realizing that there are some holes that we might need to clean up, and one of which is if somebody submits a comment written, they realize watching online or however it may be that theirs was not included in the first 10. So there's kind of a backdoor way where if somebody is in person and can submit a comment in the chambers, they can work it in, or not work it in that way, but basically not everyone has that opportunity. So that might be something we're
Or
gonna have
interest.
to,
Hard to sit. Listen, and before Zoom,
yeah,
there was no, we've got a little spoiled. I mean, we would sit for hours,
Yeah.
and that was part of the democratic process, is you just had to sit and wait.
Right.
And I understand, and I think we're all issues, but I also think, and I understand that. And, I also think though, now that we've limited our meetings to 11 o'clock, time is of the
precious.
essence with, so I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
so I don't
what
think
I mean-
anyone's comfortable.
Right. But what I mean is, not everyone is going to get a chance with that second bite of the apple. And, I don't know if Glenn wants to weigh in, but essentially if somebody submits, or let's say I submit a written comment, I realize it's not read. So I text a friend who's in the chambers and be like, here's my comment. Or maybe I pre-supplied them with a printout of the comment that I had already submitted and is already published on the website, to get it read in almost like as a second time. It's published on the website as part of our normal process, but then kind of read
With-
in by you as for a second time. I think that's something that maybe we should try to clean up.
Do you think that's gonna
I
happen
believe
a
that
lot?
has
There's
to
not
be
that
in
many
place.
people in our meetings. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry. I see your hand up.
My only thought process on that is that we are one of only, I think, a handful of cities in the state of Florida that allow public comment to be put on
website.
the website anyway, or to submit through our city clerk's office. So, you know, and I kind of hear what the mayor sayers where we have become kind of spoiled, right? And we do democracy in the best way that we can in this city. And I learn a lot of that when I go to League of Cities and I ask people, you know, how do you guys do things? What is your format? You know, and most people are like, we don't even keep our backup on Zoom. Like we don't have a YouTube channel. So we really are, and I want the public to hear, we are being forthwith with democracy. And I also hear what you're saying, Commissioner Diaz, that we don't want people double dipping per se, right? Like, how do I get my comment read
Yeah.
at the same time? But I just want the public who's listening to know that, you know, if you do your research and look at other cities, we are going way above and beyond to make sure that our community has many outlets for their voice to be heard. And, you know, we're going to keep trying to improve and we're going to keep trying to, you know, to move the needle. You know, one of the things that came up last week when we talked about the CRA is moving the CRA meeting to the chambers. And I think that's a great idea.
That's
And,
in
you know,
process. That's in process. Right, Ms.
that's
Davis?
something that, you know, that every time I go to the meetings, it's like, you know, nobody knows how to get there. It's cold, it's open, it's, you know, the feedback is bad sometimes on the microphones. So I support and I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Diaz. I just want the public to know that if they did their research and saw what other cities do, we are doing above and beyond.
Oh,
And they see-
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think, you know, I'm always shocked that we don't have more people commenting on Zoom, for example. But yeah, that's definitely not what I was getting at. I was just like, you know, we're continuing to improve and we continue to want to make it more fair and equitable to everyone. So, you know, that's why I'm just addressing a double dipping thing. But I've been
But also,
involved
I mean,
with-
I don't think that's gonna happen, but here's the other thing too. I mean, if someone's sitting at home and watching us and, you know, in the meeting by Zoom and they want to speak, they can. I mean, you don't have to come, if you want to be heard, if you want to be the speaker of your comment, you can do that from home. You don't have to bother to come to the city commission chambers,
right.
which, so I mean, it's not like, I mean, you can have your voice heard if you really want your voice heard. It's very easy to send in a comment to have somebody read this for me. It's also not as effective as doing your own speech. Commissioner McBoy, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I had this topic on my list as well. And I think the issue is we all are committed to as much participatory democracy as we can in the city, as much transparency, as much public input as we can. And I totally agree with the concern that you don't want to discriminate against people who don't have the ease of being able to come to the meeting. Some people have young children, they got to be putting them to bed.
They can still speak in person, online.
I don't know about you, but I would have difficulty putting a kid to bed and speaking online at the same time. So I think we want to make sure that we give people as many opportunities as possible and make sure that I think there are people already in the community that said, hey, I've had people talk to me about it. Hey, I put in a comment and never got read. And there's nothing on the website that tells people, hey, if you're after 10, it's not going to get read. I just checked the other day and it doesn't say.
But it doesn't have to be read. People can sit there and wait and actually take the time to pay attention and read it in person with their face online. How
Adam,
back,
here, the
how do we have to?
attention, I think, is not very respectful to people who have other things that are demands on their time. And the comment, well, you just got to do your research. Let's make it fair and easy for people in different circumstances to get their comments in. And maybe we need to limit the time. I personally think the idea of a hard policy at 10 is not as good as an adjusted one where we say, hey, look, if we, looks like we have plenty of time, looks like there's a lot of interest in this topic. If I heard correctly last night, there were 21 comments. I have no idea what the other 11 ones said. And knowing.
So read it online. So go and read it. It's posted.
That might be, but that's not at the time that we're discussing the topic. So I don't get that input on it.
Well, I got emails yesterday. I was in City Hall at like 3:30 And I got emails yesterday
Yes,
that's working like 4:30. So we even if they're speaking from home, or if you've read it ahead of time, you have it in your head while we discuss it at the meeting. Ms. Davis, I see your hands up.
adjustment. So we're not quite there.
I'm asking Ms. Davis.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure all the commissioners know that when the comments are online, they're there prior to the meeting, most likely. They have up to 5 p.m., if I'm correct, Shayla, to submit comments prior to that. The meeting.
5:40, we take our last comment at 5:45 for a meeting.
Okay,
so
up to
our cutoff is
5:45. So many people put in their comments well before that, but they have up to 5:45 of that meeting. So it is online for all to see. And then also, as we're in the meeting, if you have your computers, you have the opportunity to see them as well. I was doing that last night while they were, while we were having the meeting, I was reading the comments at that time.
And I had read all of them before I went to the meeting. I read
Right.
everything. The
So
ones that are familiar to
I
me.
just
'cause
wanted to
I've read-
add that they are most comments are there prior to the meeting. So you have the opportunity to look at them before the meeting.
Yes, they post as the emails come into the city clerk. So as we get the emails, they post online.
Commissioner
And
Malega.
again, and again, I just want to state, 2 years ago, we used to have to sit in the chambers for hours if we wanted to have
Ever.
public comment. So, this is, again, I'm not saying spoiled or sense of entitlement, but we are going above and beyond. And we have made it accessible to all facets of the community to be able to reach out to us via email, phone call, messaging through leaving a voicemail at our office. I mean, I have 4 or 5 messages a week that I check that
Right.
don't even apply to the city commission. Yesterday, one was for the utility department. So
Mhm.
there are ways that people can reach us. It's our job to respond to the emails, to every one of them, even just to say, hey, thanks, I got your email, and acknowledge it. And, we are doing the best that we can. We cannot continue to curb our policies because 3 or 4 or 5 people might be upset. We are going above and beyond, and nobody has to sit in the chambers now for hours. Heck, 2 years ago, if I could have sat on Zoom, made dinner, done laundry, and
Right.
waited for my name to be called, that would have been a huge blessing.
Right. Commissioner Stokes?
Yeah, I'm looking on the website and I thought Melissa said that she had updated it to mention that the new policy about the cutoff at 10, I'm not seeing it on there. Maybe it's hidden. I'm just not seeing it. So if we could check into, that.
And maybe add to that, you have the opportunity to appear by Zoom in person. If that's not
That's
clear on the
there.
website. All right.
It's clear. There's 2 options. One, you have your live public comment. So you
Okay.
can, and it explains that process. And 2, the clerk will read your public comment. And in that bullet and that second, it doesn't mention the cutoff that, that the
Okay.
first 10.
Well, we should
So
fix
we'll-
that.
we'll make sure.
Shayla? Yeah.
If we could clarify that. The other thing, I don't know that we're gonna have time to solve it right now, but I hear what Commissioner Diaz is saying, that I think our policy for how online comments are being done right now is very crystal clear. Like, you have Zoom, top 10 will be read, everything will be posted online. We will get the tally. I don't know if we have the tallies going yet. So it'd be nice to read that out loud at the meeting once we get the tallies up and running. So I feel like we've all agreed on that.
Yeah.
But now the question is in-person comments. So I respect that. Like, I've seen it a million times before. People are in our chambers for hours with their little blue card waiting to speak, and it's just too late. They have to go home. They write out a piece of paper, they turn it in, they're not present. And then Mayor, you usually read that comment for them, even though they're not in the chambers. And
Because they at least took the effort to come to the chambers.
that I would never want to touch that, because they were there, and it's not,
Right.
they
Absolutely.
just sometimes they can't stay till midnight or now even 11. What I'm wondering is, if I'm out of town, wherever, doing whatever, and I can't make it there, can I type up my comment, send it to like my friend, like that's in the chambers, print it out ahead of time and say, can you hand this to the mayor and have the mayor read it? And is that like, you know, a loophole? I think that's what Ronaldo is referring to, but I don't know that we can solve that right now because I want to make sure that we don't end up accidentally creating a weird situation of when do we read?
Yeah, I mean, we
them,
spent a lot of time
when
talking.
don't we?
That's exactly, and I don't want to digress too much. I thought it was going to be a lot simpler, but that's exactly it. If like, can someone have someone print out comments and submit it in the chamber after they already submitted the same comment online and was already, you know, beyond the first 10? That's the fix. And, you know, we are, I think as a city, we're really good and really conscious at addressing this issue and having a lot of opportunity. We bend over backwards to make opportunities available for those who can't make it to the meetings, which is not usual. You know, I'm involved obviously with a lot of other governments and whatnot, and it's not very common. We're very definitely progressive, I would say, in this regard, in providing the opportunity. I just am concerned that there are going to be concerns of, you know, some double dipping and kind of gaming the system a little bit. That's what needs to be cleaned up. And I will point out, just to kind of close this out, and I think, you know, maybe I'll have a conversation with Glenn about this soon, but this is something that is tremendously important. It carries a lot of weight, and you know, there's issues that I have been directly and indirectly involved with that deals with this matter, and it's like a constitutional issue. And let me just point out that, you know, if there's a reason why we did this policy, and it's to get it down and it's to protect us, because these are the kind of issues that even to some of our neighbors have been taken all the way to the Supreme Court. So, you know, this is definitely something that it's maybe not a popular thing, it's not fun, but it's really important to protect ourselves as a city to really button down and make sure the language is super clean.
Okay, but yeah.
That's
Okay,
all I had.
okay. Let's work backwards and go to Commissioner Stokes. Do you have anything for us this morning?
I do. I want to see where we are with the short-term rental issue, because we had a workshop many, many months ago where we were all enlightened on what we could do and what we couldn't do. And we haven't brought that back up since. I'm getting hammered in my district because I think out west, maybe it's not as big of an issue. A lot of the short-term rentals are closer to downtown along the East Coast. And in my opinion, we either have to make them legal or we have to enforce our rules. There's no sitting around saying that there's a 60-day minimum and we're just going to ignore that fact. I've had a lot of hard conversations with other residents in my district saying, I'm investing all this money in my property, I'm trying to beautify it, I put up a fence, and it doesn't meet code, and now code's up on me and I have to take it down, or I put up artificial turf because I've been trying to irrigate my lawn and it's always dying, so I did that. And they try to get me to help fix it, and I'm like, well, those are the rules.
Right.
Code, you have a case on you. I can't go and change the rules right now. And I'm sorry, but I can't do anything. And they're like, well, how come nobody's enforcing the short-term rentals? Those are the rules. And the city's ignoring that. And I think it makes us look really bad as a city staff and us as leaders combined. It doesn't make us look good when we're saying, we know these are the rules and we're just not going to do anything about it. We've had 2 workshops now, one before we were elected and one since we were elected. I'm not really interested in having another workshop and going over the same information again. So I think we need to either have staff bring back some way to legalize it, and we can either vote up or down on that. And if somebody has an idea and feels very passionate about that, maybe they can help them craft this, or we are going to have to start enforcing this. I'm getting so many complaints.
And I think we're all in the same boat, and I don't disagree on anyone. How do you enforce it? is the issue. How do we, and I guess this is a question for William and Ms. Davis, you know, how do we enforce it? And our attorney, and we can't solve this problem today. I'm glad that you brought it up because I've been thinking about, I get, you know, emails about pros and cons. You know, some people, you know, shouldn't be in a single family district. It should be in those poorer people that live in mixed multifamily stuff. So it's a really good point. And I guess I'm looking to Mr. Tricivia.
Well, I guess one question I have is, we had at those workshops, a lot of conversation about adopting some set of rules and requirements for the vacation rentals, all vacation rentals. And then that didn't seem to get any traction. So is that something I hear the two choices, enforce or don't enforce. And I think that will be a conversation you all keep having and hopefully decide. But in the interim, do you want a set of rules adopted? Because I know, you know, staff and I, we worked on some rules. We can easily present rules that could be implemented if you'd like that. You know, those are the rules we talked about, people on site, you know, just registering with the city so we know who all these rentals are. But I don't know whether you wanted to go down that path.
I think I absolutely want us to pursue all the things that we've talked about, but they apply to all rentals, right? Like, I'm not interested in opening up any rule right now that only applies to short-term, because we're really not legally not allowed to create a rule only for short-term rentals, right? So we, you know, the mayor's been talking about this for, I think, over a year almost, right? Like, I would love to see motion on that. And we also talked about the other, I know Commissioner Malega had brought up things about the different stickers or different that we've talked a lot about a bunch of different things that we wanted to do for rental properties. We've also talked about a tenant bill of rights. So I would love for us to see movement on those things that are going to help all of the rentals and all the issues in our city for all of that. But that isn't going to address the problem of, we have these short-term rentals that are operating less than 60 days minimum. And we don't seem to be either changing that rule or enforcing it.
Okay, and I one of the things I was going to bring up today is because we've talked about it a couple times, essentially an on-site person. You know, and you know, we've sort of dithered around how many hours should it be, how long should, you know, they have to get there. And the more I hear about the problems that tenants are having, or that neighbors of bad tenants are having, is I would like to keep it a short leash. I would like to keep it just a couple hours, because to make it real. Commissioner Diaz had, you know, water coming through the ceiling, and who do you talk to? So that's something I would like, and that I would like to see brought forward.
If you're set.
Commissioner McBoy, you're breaking up.
No, I was just waiting to be acknowledged.
Okay.
I hear you on, you know, and I do support the same thing, that there should be a short response time, but I think Commissioner Stokes is pointing out that sounds like a rule that's specific to short-term rentals, which I think we're a little cautious.
No, what I just said?
Okay.
I've never said just, no.
If it's all, that's great.
I've always said on the record, any kind of rental, whether it's commercial, residential, whatever kind of that's been my line the whole time.
Okay, good. Thank you for that clarification. I think we all, well, I can't say whether we all support, but I certainly would support that too. I do think that Commissioner Stokes brings up a bit different issue, and one that I've heard from residents about too, is it's really hard for us to support code compliance or some of the other things, and residents are very sensitive to it. Hey, you're giving me a hard time for X, but I see that you're letting the neighbor do something totally different, and unequal enforcement of our rules.
Excuse me, I've called from a client. Excuse me, a call. I have to take. Chris, please. I have to take this call. Just check me out for a minute.
Could you let me finish, please?
Chris, I think your connection is is rough. Betty, I think you're now taking over as vice mayor while she steps out for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it seemed like it was an interruption. And I think it's a real problem in the city where we are uneven in our enforcement of things. I think it really weakens. It makes people feel like we're unfair, and I think that's sometimes a valid concern. So I agree that we should, figure out what our policy is going to be and then do that, whatever it is. And I support that. Let's have some clarity. Let's be consistent about it. It's also an issue with food trucks that we allow some, but we don't allow others. And, I don't think that's good governance.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Diaz has his hand raised.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
can see that.
Thank you. A couple things on that. I mean, totally agree. We need to lead by example. Consistency is definitely key on that. In terms of the renters' rights, and I love the idea of applying it to short term and all rentals
I'm back.
available. I just want to put it out there that this is something I've actually talked to a group already who's willing to help us on this regard and figuring out kind of a path to enforcement, using basically having the resources we have available with groups like Legal Aid and stuff and bringing these kinds of cases to court, but they essentially would like, the toolkit to do those things. So I can, offline, I can set up a meeting with Glenn and we can reach out to that group, because I was kind of envisioning a renter's bill of rights that included everything like Betty's, somebody needs to be on site within a couple hours if there's an issue, things like having comfortable living conditions in terms of like temperature, health things like mold. There's so many things that can be addressed.
We could list what the statute requires a landlord to do, which is surprisingly little. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But there is a group out there that's willing to help and contribute, their experience on this issue. So
you mean I missed something? You mean to write the tenant's bill of rights?
Right, exactly.
Okay. I just missed that piece of the conversation.
Yeah, there's a group, basically the catch. There's a group that I have discussed this issue with previously, and they're wanting to help, find draft this and see what works and what has worked in other areas and whatnot. So I can meet with Glenn and kind of, make that connection or share with it. But
how does everybody feel about that? Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We're all in favor of best practices and looking at what other cities are doing and adopting the best out of that seems like a great idea.
I don't think anybody's going to have that requirement to have somebody on site, but I think that's a good one to start with. Okay, so it's
also has her hand raised, Mayor.
who? Oh, hi, good morning, Ms. Davis.
Yes, I appreciate the conversation. As I am listening as well as staff, I definitely heard the question early on that Commissioner Stokes brought up regarding specifically short-term rentals. I know we've also extended into the beyond short-term rentals as well. So I just want to make sure, I'm not really hearing any direction that you would like to go concerning the short-term rentals, because I think that's my understanding, most challenging issue that Commissioner Stokes brought up.
That's because we're all avoiding it because there's no good answer.
I'm not going to
really. How do you enforce
like
that? Really, I agree. Kim, I don't think anybody disagrees that either we have to enforce it or we have to walk away from it. And I think walking away from it is not what people want.
Yeah, and there are pros and cons either way. And I know we've heard it and staff has wrestled with it as well in trying to share information either way on it. So if you want to, again, for us to lay out some direction, we can get with Glenn, because I know that there is a longstanding history with wrestling with this topic. We can bring back some other thoughts if you like.
I think one thing that might for me at least, is I believe there was a written document put together that kind of laid out the different pathways and the outcomes. If that could be updated and sent to all of us so that we could look at it, you know, at our leisure. If you go down this path, these are the likely consequences. If you go down this path, these are the likely consequences. And if somebody has some good ideas on better paths, but I think what I'm hearing is we're not very comfortable with having a policy that we in fact don't enforce.
You know, and that,
That's a
can I
stanza.
just say something, Commissioner McVoy, to that regard? There's a million other things that we have on policy that, you know, that the previous commission put on that we're not enforcing. And I brought this up to Christy yesterday. One of them is that, you know, we have laws on shopping carts that, you know, we're supposed to be assessing and fining owners, and we don't. So I think that it's a good plan for us to look at a lot of the ordinances that were passed in the last 5 to 7 years. And see, you know, what are we really doing? What kind of teeth do we have? Or do we just put these things on the books just to have them on the books? Is it just words on paper?
This is exactly the, you know, when I brought up in a budget to set aside money to look at our growth management and things like that. I mean, this is exactly the sort of thing that should be getting reviewed regularly. But I guess just to clarify, I hope it's not too windy. I'm out paddling right now, but it seems like we're asking for two things. One is Commissioner Stokes is asking that we take action or not, you know, but we need to do something in terms of the rules that we already have on the books for short-term rentals. And the second thing, as suggested by Glenn, is in the interim, what can we bring up to protect renters, you know, as a whole, short-term and long-term, to work on that, or the tenant bill of rights.
Yeah, that's two different
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
And also the neighbors of renters too. It's like the mayor said too, if neighbors call and they need somebody on site. But I see Mr. Waters might have something to add to the conversation.
Good morning. Several things to add. We have already added a local contact requirement on the business licenses that went out for renewal this year. We'll follow up. We've been working with Elizabeth and Glenn to enumerate where in the chapter, I think it's 14, we have to change and make it a requirement. We already have a partial requirement for a local person that can be available 24 hours. I like the mayor's suggestion that it be quicker, because I've gotten some complaints from several apartment complexes that do not have on-site management, that they have no one to contact on the weekend or at night.
Right.
So that we've been taking notes of. Regarding there were two little white papers prepared for you on vacation rentals. There hasn't been much that's changed in regards to what we could add or make different or best practices. Glenn took the time to like whittle it down to what would be the bare minimum. And we of course can update those two memos with a current date. We'll just provide them back. I think they were all included in the workshop that we had several, actually I guess it's back in April or May. And there are some tough decisions regarding, because some of the changes would affect all rentals, not just vacation rentals, and others would be germane to whether we are going to consider that activity a commercial use or it would remain a residential use. And that's the biggest hurdle I think that you all have to consider, is how we're going to quantify and qualify that actual use, because it does have ramifications to other parts of the code. So.
Okay.
I think that's what Vice Mayor McFoy was asking for, if there's like an option A, B, C, and here are the ramifications of
Right.
each.
Right.
Like something a little maybe easier for us to digest or understand the consequences.
Almost a flow chart that if you go this path, this is what happens. If you go this path, this is what happens.
Okay. All right. So can you guys do that, William and Glenn?
I think we can try, but I'm a little confused. I mean, if we approve vacation rentals, that's one path. If we don't approve them, that's another path that may, and I think both directions may end up with some legal challenge. So I don't know quite how to differentiate the various options and what might happen in the end. Glenn and I can put our heads together and see, but it's either a yes or a no. And The consequences are lawsuit or no in both cases.
Maybe in the meantime, if you could just recirculate those white papers that
Sure.
were done, so we can just get
I
Get
can do
up to
that.
speed.
I'll try to
Okay,
find them
great.
while we're talking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, William.
Okay, it's 9:04. We're working backwards. Commissioner McVoy, quickly, do you have anything? We got
A quick one, just slight follow-up from the utility meeting last night. I think the community is very likely happy that we did not pass another increase to the PCA. I would just like to emphasize that much as Ed mentioned that he really appreciated how OUC dealt with the concern that our utility raised, hey, it looks like there might be a billing problem. I hope that we can find a way with the utility, with ourselves, to deal with the customers that are noticing big changes in their bills, try to help educate them on what happened, take their concerns seriously. It's going to be a mix of situations. It's not always necessarily related to the 18% change that we made, but let's get to the bottom of as many as we can, and help people understand how big was the change really, what's the effect of, it happened in September versus happening in December when it's cooler, and make sure that we get out the information on aiming for 1,200 kilowatt hours a month. Check your usage, start there, and make sure that people are aware how it compares, as Commissioner Malega brought up, to other municipal as well as FP&L prices at different usage levels, that were actually pretty comparable.
Yeah, good idea. Not that anybody will believe us, but I think it's a really good idea. Because we're taking all this money. Ms. Davis.
Yes, I appreciate Vice Mayor McVoy bringing that up. And I do want to highlight that we are rearranging information on our website concerning the electric utilities and different information and helpful hints that some of our customers may benefit from. So we have started revamping our utility page, and we're going to continue to add on, particularly even some of the information that Vice Mayor mentioned just a moment ago. So please stay tuned as we continue to progressively add on more information. And if you can assist us, I know that many of your constituents are reaching out to you concerning their utility bills. If you can assist us also sharing information to guide them or direct them to our website, because I think our website will give a lot of information. We're going to put a lot of information out there. And also, if they have questions, please guide them to our customer service representatives of the utility division, because they will also be able to further answer questions, can investigate their bills, and also share the different options that are available to them. So if you can help us with that, because I know many of you are receiving some feedback. So that'll be very helpful for us as we push out information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Davis, do you mind emailing us all the exact contact information of who you want us to push them to?
Sure, we will.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I just want to highlight and kind of give kudos, because that if you haven't had a chance to look at the website, it's definitely a significant improvement, because often, and this is an issue, I think Ed and I talked about this a little bit last night, but it's never going to be perfect, and it's often not an issue of is the information out there. The information often I find is out there. It's just, it's not as easy to find as some may not, some may want it to be. And that can never be perfect. So, we put it on the bills. I'm super guilty myself, where we go on autopilot and we just look at the number in the box and respond to that. But, I think I had brought up to Carmen yesterday, things like maybe using a QR code, because that website, I see the framework for something really impressive, because it's going to be like a go-to one-stop shop for all this information, and we should tout it as regularly as possible, and those who choose to pay attention will get that information really easily now. So it's a
That-
really complicated thing to explain. It's a really complex thing to explain. It's not something we'll ever sum up into a neat little paragraph. So, you know, getting information out there in an organized way is certainly a challenge, but I think there's a lot of good progress in that regard.
Let me add, I think we need to be somewhat realistic, and I'll share with you my own experience, and I know commissioners, you've had this as well. When a customer is concerned and you engage them in a conversation, it can be a very lengthy conversation. And in many cases, the conversation ends with them saying, I still don't understand. So, and that in fact happens. So now imagine we're gonna point these phone calls and these inquiries to a customer service representative who makes $15.80 an hour, may not even pay their own utility bill at home or have a background. And we're going to educate them to have that same type of conversation that Commissioner Rick Boy, myself, all of you other commissioners as well, have tried to have with customers, and you saw last night. It's going to be very difficult to expect a customer service representative to educate the customer. They can certainly push out the basics, and they've been doing that, but it's a challenge, and we have a lot of turnover and a lot of education with that group. It's hard to keep customer service reps in our employ. And also, by the way, we have customer service reps at ENGO that are taking the bulk of the calls for us. So it's a daunting task. You know, look, last night you all saw me step out to go get a sweater. It didn't take me that long to get a sweater. Most of the time was spent in the hallway talking to a customer who felt they're going to have to flee to another utility, even though we were sixth lowest in the state, to find a lower rate, right? And I don't think she left satisfied, other than me giving her a lengthy explanation from me, my business card, and a request for her to call me directly so we could have more conversation. That tied up 15 minutes. Now imagine doing that with thousands of customers or hundreds of customers.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're not going to try. We
Right,
certainly
here's
are.
my question, my specific
hard.
question is, when I get an email or a text, whatever, about it, just not the whole, why are the rates so high, you know, all that substantive stuff. It's like, you know, I waited 15 minutes on hold and then they hung up on me, that kind of stuff.
Ouch.
Who, rather me send you that problem, or is that question, or is there someone else that would be better served by having that question answered?
We will get you an email address, and I would suggest we'll give you one that's a generic one for customer inquiries. However, if it's something that you think that really requires the immediate attention of the director or customer service manager, then you could certainly send that to me or to Nanette. And so we'll provide you with a group email with instructions on how to proceed. So we certainly wouldn't want all the questions coming directly to me or my very able assistant vice mayor, who has, to his credit, tried to get some stuff out in social media. But we'll provide you with a document that will help give you some guidance. But certainly, I know you all do communicate directly with me, and sometimes on a very specific hot item that someone has referred to you.
And you've been helpful. I mean, I emailed you a situation last Friday that you were so, oh, okay, and you talked to William and it was resolved, I believe. So there are some customer service is an interesting animal.
Right.
Okay, it's
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
9:49. Now, moving backwards, we have District 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Malega had to jump off. She had to get ready for an event.
Okay. Oh, right, which we're gonna be at soon. Okay, so what else? What else does anybody have to bring up? We have a few minutes.
It's your
Right.
turn, Mayor.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Although
Kim?
really quickly,
It's your
really,
turn, Mayor. Like,
What?
it's your turn.
although really
You're
quickly,
tired.
just one quick thing about Ed's note on getting information out. It feels like ages ago. I know Carmen was putting together some organization charts of leadership. Maybe that's a good starting point in that department. If you can reshare that with us.
Yeah. I think what Ed mentioned about the list of particularly the inquiries will probably be more helpful. But yes, I can definitely do that.
Thank you.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm on the legislative committee for the land use and economic development and for the Florida League today, and we had a meeting last week about priorities, and the priority that we're going to be lobbying about more than any other, it's number one, is a mobility plan, just, reaching out into when I hear no mobility plan, I always have questions, in Lake Worth, what can we do? But I'm being educated on like the bigger issue. Can we cooperate with other cities? Can we cooperate with the county? So then that's going to be something that we're going to be nagging the legislature about, the mobility issues. Mr. Waters, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I want to give you an update. I did speak with our proposed consultant for the mobility plan. They're putting together a proposal. I'm hoping to have it to you at the December meeting, and we'll go over the timeline over the 2-year period. And a lot of it does include interaction and coordination with the TPA and other transportation providers to provide the best options for the citizens of Lake Forest Beach. But there are also going to be quite a number of options for us to look at for the city will control. And there'll be other options that really will not work that well here because of our constrained rights of way or funding or some other aspect. We're also, just as an FYI, I'm working with Cindy because the lady that's doing the mobility really liked the idea of our game. And we're going to try to create another set of cards that will educate children and adults they want to play the game about what mobility is and how you could get around the city from place to place on Cindy's game. So I kudos again to Cindy on doing that game, and we're going to try to utilize it to build awareness, consensus, and education on the mobility aspects of the city.
Cool.
Great, thank you. Our second priority after that is infill, development. That's going to be another issue that we're going to be talking about. What was I just going to say? I had something I was going to say. But it's gone now. I got too much on my mind. Other things that I want to talk about. There was something else, but Chris, Ed, why don't you? Do you have something else?
Was that to me or to Ed? I heard both.
Ed, I just want to see if Ed want to jump in.
Yes, and we obviously mentioned last night that Walt will be retiring, and that's going to require us to do some organizational realignment within the team. We will backfill that position internally, but also move some chairs around. Walt's retirement, while certainly not something we were looking forward to and caught us by surprise, it does present us an opportunity to do some realignments within the organization, and we will be moving forward with that. We do have a number of positions that we've been trying to fill because we have other retirements that are coming likely in the spring that we've retained an outside firm to help us with. So we're working with HR on that, but we will be filling the leadership positions internally. And there will be at least one promotion that will come from that. So we're looking forward to moving ahead with that and recognizing as individuals. We do have to maintain continuity when leading, and that's important. And we're all going to recognize him at the November meeting and honor him for the service he's given his community for over 25 years. It's quite a job he's done for us. He actually filled in as city for the city in the role of director twice while searches were underway, and you can imagine the disappointment over his career that he did not ascend to the position of director. But he's remained very loyal, very hardworking, dedicated, and just an outstanding example of somebody who works for the city and does well.
Thank you. And along those same lines, staff, kudos to Lauren and her staff with the haunted house down at the Conference Center the other day. I know, Kim, you went through it with you. Did your children freak out or was it okay?
One did not go in, backed out at the last minute. And then my youngest one,
I didn't go.
I carried her in my arms and she wasn't scared at all. She's like, Mom, you were the only one screaming. And she actually turned around at one of the people and said, "Don't point that sword at me."
Oh, I love it. An assertive young woman. That's great.
Yeah, we like it.
I thought, so I mean, again, they pull on Friday night, we've got a big thing going on, and thank you to all the different staff members in the city for helping pull this off. But Lauren's crew is the energy that they have just makes me exhausted. It's wonderful. I thought about what I want to talk about, the pool. I think we're going to be coming back with some report from CGBD, that group. And I was that group, the pool group. And I was interested to hear the other day, Dan Volker, that I think it was a very good presentation that he put out. And of course, the devil's in the details, but the thought that that's a resource that we don't, exploit is a very interesting thing. And I think when we talk about the pool, he's saying we need 10 to 15 feet. I think we should just bear that in mind as we talk about the pool, that could be an addition to the amenities. You know, the pier with fish hooks, I mean, that's something that we'll have to figure out in terms of how that would work. And I want to bring up again the rope, which I see the buoy out there. We know exactly where it is. Who has jurisdiction over between our water and that buoy is my question to whoever can answer that question, whether it's Glenn or Juan or somebody. Because,
I
you know,
think
it says,
Lauren had an answer to that, didn't she, at the last meeting? I don't remember what the answer was, but she seemed to know.
who?
I thought it was Lauren. Maybe somebody else remembers better than I do.
Yes, Mayor, we did inquire, I think we received some preliminary information that I'm hearing that we may not have jurisdiction. If Lauren wants to give the initial information that we received, that'll be helpful, but I know she did receive something.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, so the buoy is not ours. It's Palm Beach County's. It's just on the divide between our waters and theirs.
Right.
They ended up taking the rope away because surfers were getting caught in the line, and so were boats. So for a liability reason, they just took it away altogether.
And took away old people's ability to go into the ocean with that. I mean, a few boats, I mean, I'm not arguing with you, but okay. I really want to revisit that because people could go into the ocean that can't. And if a surfer doesn't understand that there's a rope there, they should surf away from the rope. That seems seems like an easy solution to a problem. And we're at 9:57.
Maybe we could give direction to Lauren that could she confer back with Palm Beach County and say, could there be a shorter rope that didn't go out as far, even if it isn't really delineating the full border, but
Well,
that
it has to be hooked. It has to be anchored to the buoy. It has to be anchored to something.
Put a buoy shorter in. I don't know the technical solutions, but something that, because I agree with the mayor that some way to let people, and it isn't only older, it could be other reasons, but you know, I agree that is a nice feature. Maybe there's a way to make it work for all three, for both surfers and people who need the extra assistance.
May I
reach out
jump
to our
in?
commissioners too.
I was just gonna say, we've already spoken with Palm Beach County. The initial conversation was they were not willing to entertain it.
Right.
However, we can ask. The issue with the rope is, especially at nighttime, boats don't really see it. So that was one of the big issues with the boats. The surfers, well, if you're on a wave and you're riding it, I mean, you only have so much time to react. So I will see if we can have another conversation with them. In the meantime, I'll get with my team to see if there's other alternative solutions we can propose.
Okay. And maybe I'll talk to, we have 2 county commissioners now, so maybe I can talk to both of them.
Cool.
Because accessibility is important. And I'd love to go back in the ocean.
If put in a real quick thing, just so that, because I think we like the idea of talking about it slightly in advance so that we have some Krim and I were at an event in the Guatemala Maya community, and at that one I was made aware that Los Angeles has a proclamation supporting that community that relates to October 20th, which turns out to be a very important date in the history of Guatemala I was not aware of. I'm wondering if I can get a proclamation. I've been thinking about doing this and just to do it as part of the Hispanic Heritage Month, what we didn't get there. If I could get something together that picked up some of the ideas of the Los Angeles proclamation, which was quite nice, would people feel comfortable adding that to the November 5th meeting, just so that we don't get too far away from October?
The next meeting in November is November 1st.
Well, that day then. Yeah, I
I mean,
if
it's not Hispanic, we could always put in there as a nice thing, but if it's not Hispanic Heritage Month anymore, it'd be over. I mean, I guess depends on what it would say. I mean, that would be my question.
It would be a proclamation just recognizing the contributions of that community and some of the history of it. I'm happy to circulate through the city manager a draft of it so people can look at it and say, yeah, I'm comfortable, I'm not comfortable, assuming that Glenn is okay with that. For the sunshine law reasons, but I have no objection to sending it out in advance so people can look at it and say, yeah, that looks reasonable, or no, I'm not comfortable, whatever it is that, you know, people's feeling is, or make edits is fine too.
All right, I mean, okay. Yeah. I don't have a big issue either way with it. And now it's 10 o'clock. And we have places to go and people to meet.
Manatee joining us?
I'm sorry?
Is that a manatee joining us?
Yeah, there's a couple manatees.
Oh, I
and there's
love
like,
it. Look at that. That is so cool.
and all of a sudden, there's like 50 kids around us. Manatees are huddling around me because I guess I'm the safe spot that they recognize.
Wow.
That is so cool, Ronaldo. Thank you.
That is, thank you. I don't have a problem. We all respect and honor the contributions of the Guatemala Mayan community. I can't imagine anything controversial being on there. It would be nice if we could make sure next year it happens on time.
Yeah, we have so many different groups in our, I mean, because they have a Guatemalan center. I mean, there are El Salvadorans and there are Mexicans, and I mean, it's, you know, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't care either way.
Madam Mayor, before we go, I just wanted to let you know, you brought up the pool issue. That issue will return to the commission on December 6th with the presentation from CPC.
Whatever their name is. CBD. Okay. All right, listen, we need to go. I am now running late to where I need to be. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff, for being with us. Brian, brilliant job last night explaining all those things to us that we could go through so quickly. Much appreciated. So I will see everybody soon. German Witch Dance Friday night, 6
And
o'clock.
shouts out to the team that did the renaming ceremony. Awesome job. I'm sorry, I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lauren and team, and the water plant and the water department. It was people really appreciated it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know. Even I wasn't included on the Friends of Joanne Golden photograph, but that